Bismillah. So one practical thing that we learned from the, talk about shuk is hot water. Just, try this. I tried it. It really is very pleasant. In the winter, just hot water, sit down, sip on hot water, and appreciate the ni'mah that you have clean water, and you are able to eat it, and you're sitting, in a warm place in the middle of the winter, sipping on hot water. And then just like you will be able to retrieve. Sometimes we're good at, when it comes to memory, that there's like first you have to notice and then encode, and then the third phase is the retrieval. Retrieval is important. And sit down and in your living room or whichever, you likely do have a chair at home, and so you sit down in the chair and sip on hot water in a warm room and thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all of those bounties. And that will train you to be thankful for the little things so that you would be more thankful for the bigger things. Because the little things are big. Because keep in mind, you're not entitled to those little things. And there are a lot of people that are better than you who don't have them. They're better than you, they're more righteous, they're smarter, they're more powerful, they're even cuter than you, and you don't have them. Okay, now Salat al-Jumu'ah. So we were talking last time about the conditions of the validity of Salat al-Jumu'ah, shurut sahhat Salat al-Jumu'ah, conditions of validity. And when we started last time by the time of Salat al-Jumu'ah, and we will not repeat because we will have to cover the rest of this chapter today. But the time for Salat al-Jumu'ah according to the Hanbalis is like the time of Salat al-Eid. It goes all the way to Asr. The time of Salat al-Jumu'ah to the Hanafis and Shafi'is is just like the time of Salat al-Dhuhr. The time of Salat al-Jumu'ah for the Malikis starts with Salat al-Dhuhr, goes all the way to the Maghrib. So anyway, time of Salat al-Jumu'ah for the Hanbalis starts from a little bit after sunrise to Asr. That was the first condition. The second condition is أن يحضر من شرط صحتها فعلها في وقتها. The conditions of its validity: doing it on time, في قرية, in a village, meaning in permanent dwellings, not in tents or things of that. So nomadic people are not required to pray Jumu'ah. You need to be living in a permanent place, permanent settlement. Okay, in a village. وأن يحضرها من المستوطنين بها 40 من أهل وجوبها, being attended by 40 of the residents therein, in that village, who are obliged to pray it. Being attended by 40 of the residents of that village who are obliged to pray it. Obliged to pray, keep in mind that if someone's sick or someone who had an excuse of fear to not come to the Jumu'ah came to the Jumu'ah, they will be obliged to pray because they already came. You're sick, I understand, but you're already here. So you were excused to not come because you're sick, but you're already here. You were afraid of coming to the masjid because there were something on the way to the masjid that made you concerned. So, but you're here, so you must pray. So it is wajib on you now, and because it is wajib on you now, you will count for the quorum to establish a Jumu'ah. That is the second condition, or the third condition. The first was the time, the second is that you are in a village or town or city, not living a nomadic life, because for the nomadic people, they were exempt, they are excused. And the third condition is that we have the quorum. And the quorum for Jumu'ah, people disagreed over the quorum for Jumu'ah. All the mazahib have disagreed over what the quorum for Jumu'ah is. So for the Shafi'is and the Hanbalis, in their sort of most prominent position, or the authorized view according to the Shafi'i and Hanbalis, the quorum for the Jumu'ah is 40, and 50 has been mentioned. 40. The quorum for the Jumu'ah for the Malikis is what? 12. The quorum for the Jumu'ah for the Hanafis is what? 3 plus Imam. The quorum for the Jumu'ah for a minor position in the Hanbali madhab chosen by Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah is what? 2 plus Imam, which is like 3. The quorum for the Jumu'ah for al-Nakhai and al-Tabari and Ibn Hazm and al-Shawkani is what? 2 people. 2 people. You could say that this is the Zahiri mazhab, if you consider the Zahiri mazhab to be one of the mazhab. So why did they disagree like this? And once they disagree like this, it is important. I am amazed by the people who find a lot of certainty in their position when the scholars are all over the place like this. So once the scholars, the mujtahid imams are all over the place like this, you would have to at least appreciate that there is some ambiguity here, that there is some uncertainty here. And I don't know where people actually get the certainty from. After all of those imams disagreed to that extent and they are all over the place, 50, 40, 12, 3, 2, this, that, and then you forward. And then you feel certain about your position, it just isn't, is not rational. It means that there's a problem. Anyway, so why did they disagree like this? They disagreed like this because of several things. The numbers, where did they come up with those numbers? Like the number 40, for instance, which is the Hanbali, the authorized Hanbali thing. And the Shafi'i thing as well. The number 40, where did they come up with the number 40? Because Abdurrahman ibn Ka'b ibn Malik was sitting with his father. Abdurrahman ibn Ka'b ibn Malik, a tabi'i, he was sitting with his father, Ka'b ibn Malik, one of the Sahabas. The hadith about the the 3 people that were left behind. He's the narrator of this hadith. So Ka'b ibn Malik was basically sitting with his son Abdul Rahman, and Abdul Rahman said to him, every time they call the adhan for Jumu'ah, I see you seeking forgiveness for As'ad ibn Zurara. I hear you make istighfar for As'ad ibn Zurara. That's part of the wafa of the Sahaba radhiyallahu alayhim. So he said yes, because As'ad ibn Zurara was the first one to lead us in a Jumu'ah prayer in Hazm al-Nabit, which is a particular area, في حرة بني بياضة, رقيع الخطمات. It's a particular area outside of the Medina, in the outskirts of the Medina. The first one to lead us in Salat al-Jumu'ah prior to the coming of the Prophet ﷺ from Mecca was As'ad ibn Zurara. So that's why every time I remember this, I make istighfar for him. So then Abdurrahman said to him, how many were you at that time? And he said, we were 40 people. We were 40 men. 40 men. So that's where the Shafi'is and the Hanbalis took the number 40. Keep in mind, you may think that this may be coincidental, and I believe it is coincidental, but don't think that the scholars don't know what they're doing. Don't think that the Shafi'is and the Hanbalis, they just, took like a coincidental number and, that doesn't make any sense. It made some sense to them because they may have felt that there must be a quorum for Jumu'ah, because Jumu'ah is not like the rest of the Jama'at, and the Prophet ﷺ did not ask the people outside of the Medina to pray the Jumu'ah and so on. And the fact that Abdul Rahman asked his father, how many people were you at that time, it means that there is this concept of a quorum, and this would be the most likely number to go by. Even though they may not have been particularly certain about it, they figured that we are looking for a number for the quorum, and that may be the best number to go by. And Imam Malik felt that there were reports. Imam Malik felt about 12 because there were reports that when وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة. And then in Surah Al-Jumu'ah, Allah said if they see commerce or play or amusement, they leave you and go to it. Tell them what Allah has. Whatever is with Allah is better than commerce and amusement. He said this event took place during the time of the Prophet ﷺ when things were not as established as they are now. Keep in mind that the Sahaba would have never done this if things were established. Jumu'ah was a concept, still in evolution. And the Prophet ﷺ was given a speech, so they saw a caravan of merchants coming by, so they went to basically to trade and to buy things and stuff like this, because they figured it's a speech like the rest of the speeches and we can come back to it and things like that. And it is said that there were 12 people left who did not leave the masjid at the time, and Imam Malik said if the 12 left and the Prophet proceeded, then it means 12 is the number for the quorum. Could be coincidental also. Yes, but Imam Malik was looking for a number for the quorum, so that's why he chose 12. And then Imam Abu Hanifa, for instance, said that you need to be speaking to a jama'ah, and 3 is a jama'ah, so you are speaking to a jama'ah of 3 people. And then they said, the other position, the Hanbali madhab, which is chosen by Ibn Taymiyyah, jama'ah could be 2, you're speaking to 2, you're the imam, you're speaking to 2. The people who said it is 2, the imam and another person, so the imam is speaking to another person, so 2 including the imam, said that we don't see any proof that there is a quorum for Salat al-Jumu'ah, then the quorum for Salat al-Jumu'ah is the same quorum for jama'ah. There is no difference between Jama'ah, congregation prayer, and Jumu'ah, because the numbers that were mentioned to be a quorum for Salat al-Jumu'ah do not have basis, not in the sense of transmission, but in the sense of their implication. They're not clear that this is actually the number for the quorum. They were all coincidental. So we're saying that whatever is a quorum for Jama'ah is the quorum for the Jumu'ah, and we have a hadith reported by al-Bukhari from Malik ibn al-Huwairis radiallahu anhu, where the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to them, إِذَا حَضَرَتِ الصَّلَاةُ فَلْيُؤَذِّنْ أَحَدُكُمْ وَلْيَؤُمَّكُمْ أَكْبَرُكُمْ. If when the time of the salah comes in, one of you will make the azan, and the older of you will lead the prayer. So he used the dual pronouns, so we have in Arabic, we don't have only singular and plural, but we have singular, dual, which is musanna, and plural, which is jama. So he used the dual pronoun, وَلْيَؤُمَّكُمَا أَكْبَرُكُمَا. So they said that means that 2 people establish a jama'ah, therefore 2 people establish the jama'ah. And you would certainly see why Ibn Hazm would uphold this position, because Ibn Hazm was about the letter of revelation. His school is called the literalist school, even though he did not call it this, but other people called it this, the literalist school, because it's about the letter of revelation. So where do we go from here? These are the different positions. You're studying this book. This book is the Hanbali madhab. If you wanted to remember the Hanbali position, it's 40 people. But we in our circumstances here in America, we cannot afford to be doing this to ourselves, because in many towns there is not a quorum. In many towns that I visited throughout the continent, there is not a quorum, and if we say to the people who live in those towns, there is no Jumu'ah for you, they don't be, I'm not saying that, but many of them will be, completely accepting of it, absolutely, we agree. I don't have to take, time out of work, and I don't have to be rushing back and forth from work and all of that stuff, and I don't have to skip my lectures. It would be good news for a lot of people. But without Jumu'ah, without this weekly meeting for us Muslims, those people could be living away from Muslims, away from Masajid for months on end, for years. If we also tell them the Salat al-Eid is not obligatory. It's just So the faqih would have to be mindful of such circumstances, of such conditions. So whenever, if there are, certainly we will encourage people and motivate them and stress to them the importance of Jumu'ah in a masjid jama, in like the main masjid of the neighborhood, and that is the system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala laid down for us is a beautiful system. Salat al-Jama'ah, you could pray it in any masjid, the masjid of your neighborhood. Salat al-Jum'ah, it has to be prayed in the Masjid al-Jama, which is a weekly event. So it brings all the people from the larger neighborhood. Nowadays it's like not the town, because towns could be much larger, but supposedly it used to be bring the people from the town or the larger neighborhood together. Like imagine if we have Masjid al-Wali, for instance, and we have a couple of smaller masajid around. If there is no logistic convenience if there is no if it is not for logistics, those masajid should be closed and we should all come to a Masjid al-Jama. Here, people from Medicine come to a Masjid al-Jama and pray Jumu'ah together. And then Salat al-Eid, it used to be prayed outside of town. And that is to bring all the people from the outskirts and all of the people from the nearby towns so that they pray in one place. So it is basically an ascending system where a smaller number of people will pray the different congregation prayers together, and then larger number will pray the weekly congregation prayer, and then much larger number will pray the Eid together. So in our conditions, we will tell the people, try your best to pray in the Masjid al-Jama, and if you cannot, then pray wherever you are. The masjid is not a condition. The masjid in the masjid in a city or a town, by the permission of the Imam. According to the Hanafis, it has to be a masjid, it has to be by the permission of the Imam, and it has to be a town. The definition of the town is a town where there is a Sharia court and so on and so forth. So maybe according to technically speaking, according to the Hanafi position, many of the Jumu'ah will not be valid. But again, you have to put this in perspective, and you have to understand the conditions of the people, and particularly who live as minorities, Muslims who live as minorities. So if you can, if you cannot leave work and your factory, your college, this, that, you have like a good number of brothers and sisters, I have to say brothers in particular here, so that it's not, I'm not creating confusion, because the quorum has to be established by two brothers. So if you have two brothers and sisters as well, but if you have two brothers, that establishes a quorum. So if you are surgeons and you're basically you have a list of operations every Friday and you can't get out of it, and it starts early in the morning, according to the Hanbali position, you could actually do your Jumu'ah at 8 o'clock in the morning before you head to the OR with a couple of other surgeons, and that's it. You have that would be tawfiq, that would be caution, because the Hanbalis did not say two. Unless you take this Hanbali position, which is a minor position of the Hanbali madhab, which is 2 plus 1, 3, and you find two others in addition to you, you could be consistent with this Hanbali position, and you will be consistent with the Hanbali position regarding time. And you could pray. If this is the only way you could pray Jama'ah, do it this way. But we will tell you, don't just sit on this and don't be satisfied with this and don't make this your habit. Try to work hard so that you could take that day off or take an hour off in the middle of the day when you become like a more important surgeon or like a more senior surgeon. You could choose to do your operations on a different day or to switch the times around. But for many people, they don't have that leisure, keep in mind. So don't just keep doing this. Don't settle for the patchwork. The patchwork may be needed for like a period of time, like for a need, for some hardship that you may otherwise encounter if you have to leave work. Is that clear? I'm not trying to say that we sit up for this, but I'm trying to say that Jumu'ah is so precious that we cannot really sacrifice Jumu'ah. So if you cannot do it in the most perfect way, in a Masjid al-Jama, Masjid al-Wali here, you drive to and Masjid al-Wali because it is also purchased. It is waqf versus a masjid that is a rental masjid. So we're not going to get into this even. And so if you want to do it in the most perfect way and come to a masjid that is completely purchased, completely waqf, has 40 people, 40 men, in addition to the sisters, then that would be the most ideal sort of scenario. Try your best to do this and to basically live up to that scenario. If you cannot for some reason, then we do have the sa'ah, the flexibility in our heritage is huge. And we're not talking about sa'ah, we're not talking about, like positions that are counter to the Quran and the Sunnah. We're talking about positions that are still within the realm of Quran and Sunnah, that are not counter to the letter of the Quran and the Sunnah. So when you take the Hanafi position, for instance, which is four is a quorum according to the Hanafis. 4 is a quorum according to the Hanafis. That's the authorized view in a major madhab of the 4 mazahib. 4, that's it. So you don't need the 40 because you have an authorized view of 4. The authorized view in the Hanbali madhab, that is the authorized view in a major madhab of the 4 mazahib. Authorized view is that Salat al-Jumu'ah is like Salat al-Eid. So 4 people pray Jumu'ah at 8 o'clock in the morning at their workplace. They will not be completely Hanafi, they will not be completely Hanbali, but they'll be they'll be patching the two in a way that is not offensive to the objectives of the Sharia. We said before that patching could be offensive to the objectives of Sharia. When you're doing double standard, when you're doing something that would otherwise be awkward, you're not announcing your wedding and you're not having 2 witnesses, because some people said you don't need to announce, some people said you don't need the 2 witnesses. So this is a secretive wedding. This is offensive to the objectives of Sharia. Here, we're taking the number from the Hanafis, we're taking the time from the Hanbalis to do what? To allow the people to pray Jumu'ah, to allow some Muslims to come together and pray Jumu'ah and not skip that or not drop that important ritual, weekly ritual for us Muslims. Are we trying to be offensive to the objectives of Sharia or serve them? We're trying to serve them, not to circumvent them. Okay, next, he said, وأن يتقدمها خطبتان. So we said, شروط صحتها here, conditions of validity. We're doing it on time or in time. We're doing it in a village, 40 people, that's 3. أن يتقدمها خطبتان. It has to be preceded by 2 khutbahs. It has to be preceded by 2 sermons. في كل خطبة, and then he will describe the ingredients of every khutbah, because these are the pillars of Jumu'ah. These are important because without this, Jumu'ah is not valid according to the Hanbali madhab. So he said that it has to be preceded by 2 khutbahs. Only the Hanafis said 1 khutbah would be sufficient. Did the Hanafis ever say that you do 1 khutbah? No. They said you do 2 khutbahs, but they said 1 would be sufficient. Like if someone forgot, if someone, was in a hurry and prayed and did 1 khutbah and did not sit down in the middle and rise and do the 2nd khutbah, that's valid according to the Hanafis. But according to the majority, according to this authorized view in the Hanbali madhab, Jumu'ah has to be preceded by 2, not 1 khutbah. Each khutbah has to have the ingredients. And here he gives us the ingredients of each khutbah. He said, في كل خطبة حمد الله تعالى والصلاة على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وقراءة آية والموعظة. In every khutbah, okay, so be preceded by 2 sermons. In each one, in each of which there is hamdullah ta'ala, the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Abu Dawud reported from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, كل كلام لا يبدأ بحمد الله فهو أجزم. Every speech that is not started by Hamdulillah, praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is leper, diseased, defective, deficient. Okay, so you do not want your speech on Jumu'ah to be defective. Here, keep in mind that we are being somewhat okay, so الدليل here أوسع من الدعوة. الدعوة here, the claim here that we are making, that, in the Hanbali madhab, that this is a condition of validity. The dalil that we are mentioning here, the evidence that we are mentioning, simply means that it is a condition of perfection, not validity. But we're using this, and this has been the authorized view. If you don't have al-hamd, your Jumu'ah is not valid according to the Hanbalis. What is their dalil that your Jumu'ah is not valid? Is that the Prophet ﷺ said that if every speech that's not started by the praise of Allah is deficient. The Prophet ﷺ meant is not, he was not talking about Jumu'ah in particular, he was talking about all speeches. And someone may say, but this does not mean that it is invalid, just means that it is imperfect. Imperfect versus invalid, a big difference. But the Hanbalis said it is invalid, and that is what they used. They supplemented this, they always supplement, so sometimes the dalil would be short of proving the claim. So they always supplemented with something else. So how did they supplement this? By the hadith of Malik ibn al-Huwayrith in Bukhari, where the Prophet ﷺ said, Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli, pray as you see me pray. And every time they supplement with this hadith, because pray as you see me pray. And then they will tell you, we've never heard of the Prophet ﷺ making khutbah al-Jumu'ah without, alhamd. So given that he did not, and he said pray as you see me praying, we consider this to be a condition of validity. Okay, if agree or don't agree, but this is the position of the Hanbali madhab, that must start with al-hamd. Okay. وَالصَّلَاةُ عَلَى رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. And the recital, and sending blessings on his messenger, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Because the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, أَكْثِرُوا عَلَيَّ مِنَ الصَّلَاةِ يَوْمَ الْجُمُعَةِ وَلَيْلَةَ الْجُمُعَةِ. Many ahadith. This is, bona fide. This is confirmed. All of the hadiths are not the strongest in their authenticity, but the amount of hadith that have been reported, that imply this or that indicate this are numerous. So this concept is established, that we send blessings onto the Prophet ﷺ on the night and the day of Jumu'ah. What is the night of Jumu'ah? When does the night of Jumu'ah start? Thursday after Maghrib. Thursday after Maghrib, the night of the Jumu'ah starts. So it is important that we understand that the revering and veneration of the Prophet ﷺ is an integral part of our religion, because the guide, part of revering and glorifying the sender is to revere his messenger. Isn't that true? Isn't that true? Part of being able to hold on to the path is that you revere the guide. So all of these are reminders for us that you have to walk behind that one guide on this path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is an integral part of the religion, because some people, some people have shubuhat and so on and so forth. Like, why would one man, get all that attention or get all of that praise, or because this one man is the guide to God, and he is the messenger that God sent. Part of revering, glorifying God and showing love for God is to revere and glorify the messenger that he chose and that he sent. And part of revering, you cannot adhere to the path, the message itself. You cannot adhere to the message without appreciating and glorifying the messenger who is the guide. How do you walk behind someone that you don't trust this much? So all of this builds into us, all of this, all of these injunctions by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to revere and glorify, to revere the Prophet ﷺ, and to respect the Prophet ﷺ, and to have love and affection for the Prophet ﷺ, builds this into us, that this is your guide, this is your path to me. And you must walk behind this guide, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Then, but certainly الدليل أوسع من الدعوة also here. The dalil that the Hanbalis mentioned here to say that this is a pillar of Salat al-Jumu'ah, condition of validity, is too general. The Prophet simply said, send blessings unto me on the night and the day of Jumu'ah. He did not say it's a condition of validity to make the Salah during Khutbah al-Jumu'ah. The Hanbalis are saying that at least this is the time when everybody will remember to do it, because you may forget to do it throughout the day. So at least we make this an integral part of the khutbah, so that the Muslims in town, they did not all forget to send salawat and salam unto the Prophet ﷺ during the day of Jumu'ah. So make this an integral part of khutbah al-Jumu'ah. And then he said, وَقِرَاءَةْ آيَةٍ, and the recital of a verse from the Quran, and maw'izah, exhortation or advice. So what are the conditions of validity? What are the ingredients of khutbah al-Jumu'ah for the Hanbalis? Say Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Two. We got two now down, right? Okay. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته. Oh, you who believe, fear Allah as He should be feared. Okay. Ibadallah, ittaqullah. O servants of Allah, fear your Lord. Done. Jumu'ah is done. One khutbah. You come back for the second khutbah and you repeat the same thing. Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته يا عباد الله اتقوا ربكم يا عباد الله أقيموا الصلاة حافظوا على صلواتكم يا عباد الله أحسنوا إلى جيرانكم يا عباد الله بروا آباءكم. Done. Second khutbah is done. All were done. And then if you want, because the Hanbalis will come back and say to you, if you're capable of doing this in Arabic, you must do it in Arabic. We did it in Arabic. We're done. The rest of it will be in English now. So for the people, and particularly the Hanafis are the most sort of observing of this, that it has to be done in Arabic in particular. But if you want, that's it, you're done. You did it all in Arabic. Yeah, you finished all the ingredients, all the pillars in Arabic. So basically, alhamdulillah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha haqqa tuqatih wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. Ibadallah, ahsinu ila jiranikum wa birru aba'akum. And then you finish your khutbah in English and you will be all good. The Hanbalis consider this to be important in both khutbahs. So you'll do this and repeat it in the second khutbah as well. So it is simple and it takes 2 minutes, and anyone, any Muslim with just very little knowledge can give khutbah al-Jumu'ah. All of our rituals do not require, sort of a clergyman to perform.
Is there any method that says if give myself a taqillah, the khutbah is invalid? I'm just curious. Is there any method that has that rule?
The taqwa of Allah.
If you don't tell them to have taqwa of Allah, that the khutbah is invalid.
No, I'm not aware of any. The basic maw'izah, but certainly the basic maw'izah is taqwa Allah. But any maw'izah, if you say birru aba'akum, it would be. Yes.
In the Hanbali school, could the ayah count as the advice? So the ayah الذين آمنوا الله قاتلوا المسلمين إلا وأنتم مسلمون.
They separated between them, and any ayah is considered advice. So if they separated between them, then we should provide advice next to the ayah. Yeah.
So, making more than 2 khutbahs, like they do in Pakistan, or 3 khutbahs, they do the first and then they make the adhan.
They don't consider the first one khutbah. In Pakistan, they don't consider the first one khutbah. They consider the first one a mu'izah prior to the khutbah. But the khutbah for them is after the adhan, because they do it in Arabic. They do the mu'izah, in the local language, and then they do the khutbah in Arabic. There is no harm in speaking in the language that people will understand, and if you feel that you want to fulfill all the the criteria, fulfill them. Say Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah in Arabic. Say Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullaha haqqa tuqatih wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun in Arabic. Say the least maw'izah, which any speaker, even the speakers who speak in English, that any speaker would say something in Arabic that will basically count as maw'izah. Say all the ingredients in Arabic, but all the ingredients will take less than, in fact, not 2 minutes. In fact, less than 1 minute. If you want to time me, the time me. Start. Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullaha haqqa tuqatih wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. Ibadallah, taqu rabbakum wa addu zakata amwalikum. Stop.
11 seconds.
11 seconds. And then I was even generous. I talked about zakah and I talked about lots of things. Anyway. But it is important that we understand. Now the next issue here is, how long should we take? How long should we take? How long should we take? People, everybody will claim to be moderate, right? All the people are moderate. Everybody is moderate. The most extreme of people are moderate because they think that there is an extreme that is even farther away from their extreme. So that concept of moderation. But Allah told us to be moderate, so we'll have to say that we should be moderate. My understanding of moderation is that it is based on your community. Like to give a speech in like a certain areas, for instance, in Alexandria, Egypt, where I grew up, to give a speech for 1 hour is pretty decent, pretty moderate. It's mild. People would be actually appreciative of how short your speech was, because the neighboring masajid, they will be sort of kept hostage until lost. So people would walk away, and someone would come and tell you, I like how you do things. I like how moderate you are, and how nice and short your speech is. Anyway, so it depends on your community. You have to be understanding of the condition of your community. And for most of our communities here in this, where we live in this country, the people need to go back to work and stuff like that. So 30 minutes would be good, 25 minutes would be good, 35 minutes would be good, around that would be good. But keep in mind that when the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ طُولَ صَلَاةِ الرَّجُلِ وَقِصَرَ خُطْبَتِهِ مَئِنَّةٌ مِنْ فِقْهِهِ, that the short khutbah and the long prayer is an indication of someone's good understanding of the deen, because the Arabs in general, Arab culture in general, is a vocal phenomenon. We like to talk. And then once you got some people hostage, you just keep on talking. And then, so the Prophet ﷺ was telling them, don't get carried away. Just keep it short, because you'll get the people tired of the mu'izah. Once the people get tired of the mu'izah, they will not accept it. So he's talking from that perspective to people in that culture who used to talk forever. Talk. Poetry. That is, they sit down and, recite their poetry or chant their poetry. And that used to be, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but oftentimes it is bad, because people who want to hold people captive to their own speech, regardless of the people's conditions and regardless of the people's circumstances and regardless of the people's capacity to digest this, are egotistic. They are actually coming from a position of self-service. You know, they are. That is why in this hadith the Prophet ﷺ said, وَإِنَّ مِنَ الْبَيَانِ لَسِحْرًا. Some speech is like magic. Some speech is like witchcraft, like magic. And the people who are eloquent and they keep like, you know, preaching to the people regardless of the people's need and regardless of what they're saying, they're usually trying to show off their eloquence. They're trying to show off their eloquence. And they're enjoying having an audience, and that is a problem with speakers. The enjoyment of having an audience, because we all like to talk. You know, I'm talking to you now for the last 2 hours. We all like to talk, we don't like to listen. That is part of our self-serving sort of fulfillment. And that is what the Prophet ﷺ was basically warning us from, that don't go down this path. Keep it short, be understanding of the needs of the people. But the Prophet ﷺ used to sit down, jalsat al-istiraha, sit down to rest between the two khutbahs. What does that tell you? That it was long enough to need to rest in the middle, right? So it is not, you know, the 11 seconds. It certainly isn't. And at the same time, it is also not, you know, too long that you're hitting a loss, which Abdullah ibn Abbas did one time. But he was talking about something serious and he needed to do it one time. That's fine. But it was weird. That is why people were sort of agitated, or some of them, you know. But it was not natural. So the bottom line is be cognizant of and considerate of the you know, people's needs and people's conditions. Okay, so we finished the conditions of validity, and I don't know why we spoke for too long about validity, because we didn't finish the rest of the chapter, which is 9:58 now, so we'll probably not be able to. Next time we'll talk about description, which means the sunan. We'll talk about catching the Salat al-Jumu'ah, and then we will talk about Tahiyyat al-Masjid, or praying the 2 rak'ahs when we walk in, and then we will talk about some other rulings. And we're close to finishing Kitab al-Salah, and next inshallah will be Kitab al-Zakah, Kitab on Zakah. قولوا قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.